So therefore, protecting our whole nation, and whatever you must do, you have to do. But anger will not harm them, it will harm you. So with a sense of concern, and for foolish people, the only voice, the manner in which you can tame them or curb their infiltration is a violent act, then do that with a concern, sense of concern for other, empathy for other. But momentarily, for example, when you put an injection on a small child with concern, you know it's going to pain, but it's actually to avoid greater damage to the child. So with a concern for their life, not out of bitterness, do whatever means is necessary, but with no hatred. Hatred is not useful for anyone.
So right now, see, the thing is, we are going on a different trajectory because you have that's a different topic. So it has opened up a lot of questions in my own mind. Like I want to ask them. So right now, India, Pakistan. Like since we're talking about the Pelgam attack, I wanted this to be a separate conversation, but we will do this in this thing only. There is a lot of hatred, but the thing is, people living in Pakistan, they are radicalized, they are extremists, are actually taught that Hindus are kafirs, or India Gazwa Hind. Like this is a common uh, text. Like this is like a basic mission of Pakistanis, that they want to conquer Hindus and India.
India is culturally very rich, and you should, as His Holiness always says, you should lead the world in terms of value. And if I have to choose another religion apart from Buddhism, I would definitely choose Hinduism. Reason? Because there is a strong belief in reincarnation. There is a strong belief in karma. There is a strong belief in value system, ethics. And if you look at the value systems around the world, India is the richest. If you look in terms of history, India is the richest. Buddhism that we are so proud of, it's not Tibet's homegrown religion.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Jay and Bharat show. Today I have with me Geshe Nawang Sonam sir, a highly decorated Geshe, a highly decorated spiritual practitioner and philosopher, one of the official translators to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Sir, I'm truly honored to have you on my show, sir. It's a big honor, sir. Big honor, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart.
And I'm also happy. I think this is probably my first podcast appearance. So
I
I'm,
see.
I'm actually very happy to be able to have a conversation with you.
Yes, sir. So you wanted this to be very deep conversation. I'm aware of it, sir. So guys, this is going to be a very deep down because sir upfront told me let's have a very deep minded, deep insighted conversation. So let's cut to the chase. So what do you think about liberation in your own ways? Like, do you think liberation is just say an existential word, or do you believe that people, in the name of spirituality and liberation, they make their egos even more high? So like, what's the word of liberation mean to you?
Exactly. You have to see the correlation between ego and liberation.
Yes, sir.
Because liberation in Buddhist context, okay, liberation may mean to different religious traditions. So I cannot speak for the other religious traditions. But being a Buddhist practitioner and a Buddhist myself, and having studied Buddhism quite long, extensively, I can explain from the Buddhist perspective, and also can simplify it. So, no, liberation basically, if literally, if I explain it from a Buddhist perspective, it entails bringing a complete cessation to our sufferings. Now, how do we do that? Now, liberation, if you speak about liberation, you cannot limit liberation, attainment of liberation only to this life. So, again, the concept of reincarnation becomes very important. And so, if you look at ourselves, we have sufferings, continuous sufferings, uh, whether you belong to a Buddhist community or whether your religious tradition is another, doesn't matter. As humans, as sentient beings, we all have sufferings. That's reality. And also the fact that we don't want sufferings or suffering at all. There's also one reality. Then we also want happiness. We want joy. That's also inherent, natural. So, given this, that we have suffering, which we don't want, which nobody wants, not even insects, okay, let us say sentient humans, even insects, so long as it has feeling of pain and pleasure, it doesn't want to suffer. So, given that we have bounteous, infinite suffering all over the world, individual also. And given that we also want to be happy, and no matter how happy we try to be, we are not really satisfied with our happiness. So now we have basically two very easily deducible realities in life, that we don't want to suffer and we want to be happy forever. And we never want to suffer at all. And if there is a way we can be completely free of suffering, and additionally, if this cessation of suffering entails experiencing continuous joy and happiness, we should all vouch for that. Okay. So the Buddhist understanding of liberation is complete cessation of our sufferings associated with infinite joy. All
I
right.
get your point.
All right. Now, correlation between this liberation and ego, that's very important.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Where do you draw the line? This is what I
exactly.
want to know.
Now we have to look at from where does our suffering arise.
Okay.
Okay. And well, there are different layers of emotions, but at the heart of all these emotions is grasping at a tangible, independent I. All right. And so ego is basically that mind grasping at a tangible, independent I. So if a tangible, independent I is a reality, well, we cannot do anything with that. But if this is a distortion of reality, I'm speaking of the mind grasping at independent I. So if the mind grasping at an independent I is a misperception of reality, if it's what it interprets is distorted, and now we have to look at if that distortion can be corrected, if we can do something about that distortion. So now whether we can actually reduce grasping at an independent I, and then furthermore, if there's a way to completely uproot this grasping at an independent I, that's a very, very important question. All right. So Buddhism believes, Buddha Shakyamuni believes that
Yes.
grasping at an independent I is a misperception of reality. Not only that, the good news is that the reality, whether it is a Buddha to expound reality or not, whether something is a reality or not, does not depend on the appearance of Buddha. So reality is reality. It's intact there. You only need to discover that. So according to Buddha Shakyamuni and Buddhist masters, Indian Buddhist masters, beginning from Buddha Shakyamuni, Nagarjuna, all of them have unequivocally said that self-grasping is a distortion of reality. And we can eliminate this distortion not only temporarily, but from the root. So if you're able to eliminate this grasping in an independent I, that's mind, okay, a distorted mind, then that's liberation too. Okay, that's another facet of liberation. So liberation entails reducing your ego. Working for liberation entails reducing your ego. As if someone says, I'm working for my liberation, and then appears arrogant and
Yeah.
proud and so forth, then he doesn't really understand what liberation is. Just a simple definition of liberation. Now, enlightenment is a higher form of liberation. All right. So aspiring for liberation for oneself is justifiable from every respect. It's completely okay. But then there are some people who are genuinely compassionate, who have great values in their life, and they care about their loved ones, their parents, and their brothers, their sisters, their countrymen. And some even care beyond humans. And some care for the entire sentient beings. So if someone aspires not only to liberate oneself of one's own sufferings, but to liberate others of their sufferings, then just simply aspiring for the elimination or liberation of others' suffering will not bring you any result. And if you, without pursuing your own enlightenment, your own Buddhahood, if you try to work out for others' enlightenment, that's also not going to be successful, because as far as infinite as space is, sentient beings are infinite. So, but now you need to perfect yourself first in order to lead others. If they are karmically linked to you, connected to you, then you can somehow influence them and lead them towards enlightenment. So, enthused by compassion, if you aspire to reach the highest state of enlightenment or liberation, that is complete Buddhahood, for the sake of others. But in practice, practically, you are the one who is pursuing that enlightenment. But
I see.
your motivation is not individualistic. Your motivation is not selfish. At heart is concern for others. But in reality, you pursue your enlightenment. So that is the definition of the highest form of liberation, which we call as enlightenment in Buddhism. So Mahayana Buddhists actually emphasizes on this highest form of liberation and enlightenment. At the heart of that is compassion for others.
So, as a person, if I'm to give a constant check, like if I'm walking towards a path of liberation, spiritual attainment, like if I'm to just check on my, metrics, like if I'm being more spiritual or if I'm being just more spiritually egoistic. So where do you like? Is there any litmus test you believe that maybe a person should know, like if I'm going in a certain direction, if it's right or wrong, should I instantly come to know?
So what you
Yeah.
have to
For
do
example,
is,
yes, sir, the thing is, many people just people now flaunt that they go to temples, they go to they do all these religious practices, and so I don't think so these people are somewhere down the line religious or
yes,
spiritual. So what's the the catch key? As a person, you should instantly get to know that you're full of shit. So where do you draw the line, sir?
you see, now I'm a monk, okay,
Yes.
totally dedicated to my practice. I'm a celibate, uh, brahmacharya, sannyas. And so there's a whole lot of difference between me and a lay married person or someone
Yes.
who doesn't aspire to become a monastic.
Yes.
So now, ordinary people with not much of philosophy, I don't think they really sincerely aspire for liberation, because even the concept of liberation is quite alien to them. But when they go to the monasteries, temples, or places of worship, they simply go to request some higher form of authority, like Bhagwan or whoever they worship, some help in this very life. And beyond that, I don't think, even if you look at their own bhajans or prayers and so forth, they do not really resonate liberation, help day-to-day life help. So that's a concern. But if you study, as a Hindu philosopher, if you study deeply, like the sadhus, sannyas,
Yes.
they are totally dedicated to liberation because they are actually fed up of the suffering. And so them and we have this common aspiration for liberation. So now, whether you're actually flaunting your aspiration for liberation or not, actually, how do you check? That's the question. So
Yes.
now,
Like a litmus
yeah,
test.
yeah. So I would say, now if you doing something in order to promote yourself,
Okay.
in order to make yourself famous, so that eventually you'll get more money,
Yes.
more attention, and then you'll spend the money on lavish things, all right, on and to have an affluent life. With in Tibetan we have what we call as Tokyo Tamsum: food, shelter, and clothes, and name. So ordinary people, we all aspire. Ordinary people all
Yes,
aspire.
absolutely.
So if someone outwardly adorns a monastic outfit, but what he's actually doing is using religion to get more attention for himself, to promote himself, make himself more famous, so that he can have his authority of many people, and he can have an affluent lifestyle, and he can abuse his power, any exploitations of all kinds, including women, including people with faith. When you actually come across people with faith, it becomes very easy for you not to manipulate. If you want money, you can say, you can create, you can use all kind of excuses because people have faith. Now they'll listen to you. So somehow now you have to check yourself. If you are doing everything in order to make yourself more famous, so that you can live an affluent lifestyle, and if you're not thinking much about your own death,
Yes.
and if you're not thinking much about your own future sufferings after that, so that is inevitable. It's going to happen. The time when it's going to happen, we never know. And what happens after that, it's very difficult to predict, because we don't really have control over our emotions, our actions, and how many kind of negative karmas might we have accumulated in the past, and how much of purification have you done. So if you consider all these aspects, then a practitioner will really become vigilant that I could die anytime, and I should align every inch of my activity in line with karma. And I should never abuse others, and I should never be attracted these small pleasures. So without real renunciation is not about renouncing the world or running up to the mountains. No, your attachment to ordinary pleasures, you should be able to see them in the light of suffering. So in Buddhism, we speak of suffering, tangible suffering, the pain that we have. That's easy. Now, suffering of change, good food, good family, a lot of money, things that we consider pleasant. These are actually what I call what is, these are actually comes with a package of suffering. We usually think marriage is a form of enjoying life. But marriage entails dealing with one another's emotion first, then dealing with the emotions of one's own family members, others' family members, then aligning with yourself in line with social expectations. And then initially, because of being new to one another, or excitement is some form of love, that love is going to fade over in due course of time.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And then, sometimes people who are madly in love with one another, at one point, they dread hearing one another's name. We have seen a lot of those cases. So, what I mean to say is what we perceive as happiness is basically some form of suffering. So, a practitioner should be able to see that as suffering.
So we were talking about suffering, like you were talking about suffering. So do you believe that suffering is indispensable for growth, or maybe there are ways?
Well, indispensable, I don't know. It depends on individuals. Mm. Some people, in order to understand suffering and generate a proper resolve, they don't really need to experience the suffering or the joy. They're intelligent enough to deduce it by having a look from afar. All right. So some people who are intelligent from the beginning, they can see suffering easily. Right? They don't have to go through the suffering. But some people, unless they go through the suffering themselves, they don't really relate to the suffering. So it depends on intellectual capabilities of people. But if you're intelligent and if you go through sufferings, it's a great reminder that life is not perfect. When you're youthful, when you're young, energetic, bright, intelligent, life looks very inspiring. But as you get older, more experience, and then your bodies will eventually fail you. It's a slow process, but it's going to fail you eventually. Now, so suffering is a great reminder that things are very imperfect, not really perfect. So with this Shakyamuni, if you look at the life story of Buddha Shakyamuni, when he was confined to the pleasures of the royal palace, we all know the story of Buddha Shakyamuni. He couldn't see suffering. But then he went out on a horse or chariot, sorry. And then he was able to see an old man, a sick man, a dying man, and a monk. So he could deduce that, oh, life is not that simple, no? Eventually I'll also get old, and one day I'll die. And sickness is also part of my reality. Either today or tomorrow, someday I'll get sick. And then why is that person in monastic robe? And because he is aspiring for complete liberation from these sufferings. So that encounter with reality was actually a very strong kind of awakening for him. So if you're really intelligent, suffering is not difficult. But suffering actually can be a very useful reminder. So one of the Tibetan hermits, a great hermit who is renowned in Tantric Buddhism to have got enlightened in one lifetime. So Milarepa said, "Nenjowala nena za gewikumai." For a yogi, sufferings, these are reminders of uh, the practice of Dharma. So suffering is really useful, but I don't know whether it's indispensable or not.
I see. So if we are to switch to a different topic, so Buddhism talks about there is no permanent self like
Yeah,
anatta.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, yet it still speaks of rebirth and and karma. So do you think that this is a paradoxical thing? Like, what is rebirth? Like then who is, if Buddhism talks about rebirth, then what is rebirth? Like who is reborn?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we speak of an impermanent self, not a permanent self.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
self.
kindly, kindly decipher this thing more, because
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah,
complicated
I'll
for
do
users
that.
to.
Okay.
Yes.
So there are two kinds of permanence. I mean, impermanence. Okay, permanence or impermanent in what context? Okay, if you think in the context of continuity of life, life after life, life after never ending. If you think in that term, permanence in the context of continuation, then yes, life. I mean, self is permanent in a way because it continues. Even when you become enlightened, self continues in an enlightened form. So, from that perspective, in terms of the continuity, yes, self is permanent. But now, in terms of its momentariness, now how it behaves momentarily, it always undergo change moment by moment, moment by moment. For example, your name is J.
J.
So you are J, and when you are born, you are not born this big.
Yes, sir.
Actually, very tall now. So you are not born this big. We all know. And if you chase your kind of continuity, the continuation of this body, then ultimately we'll come to this very small kind of mixture of the two fluids from the parents, which maybe we may be able to see them in microscopes. That's all. But then slowly we are transformed moment by moment. So J, if you are permanent, okay, you are a permanent, if you are a permanent, that means if you do not change in a moment, in 2 moments, why do you change? Well, how could you change if you're in moment? If you're not changing, and in 2 moments you will not change. So in 60 seconds you won't change. In 1 minute, you if you do not change, then in an hour you do not change. And if you do not change in an hour, then you don't change in mm, a day. And likewise, in a week, you don't change. And in a year, you don't change. But then you see tangible change in a course of
Months and years.
in course of time. Like you may not be able to. Well, actually, we observe change momentarily, but we can't really figure out that that is change. For example, the moment you sat down here and you were talking to me, your eyes were winking, you are moving, your lips are moving, your thoughts are moving, your blood is constantly circulating, and we are breathing in and out. So that means momentarily there's a lot of change going on. But mentally, we don't we're not able to record that change. All right.
I get your
So in
point.
terms of momentariness, we change. All right. But in terms of continuity, then of course, although we change, like the river water, okay, it flows through ranges, terrains. It continues to flow, and as it flow and as it interacts with new environment, there will be change. But it it's a continuous cycle. So likewise, yeah, life continues. That's our belief. Life continues. So if you think in terms of continuity, yes, self is permanent. But if you think in terms of momentariness, no, it's not permanent. It's impermanent. So there's no paradox here.
Okay.
The way you look at it.
I get the point, sir. Very well understood by me now. So I want to take a deeper dive into your life. So for how long you have been a practicing monk? Like at what age did you attain monkhood?
Well, actually, since the time I remember from school, I always wanted to be a monk, and
Why?
I don't know really. In this life,
At what age did you had this thought in your mind? 6 or 7? Oh,
yeah, yeah,
oh God, I see.
yeah. And even when I was in school, I tried many times to get to a monastery. When I was in TCF school, I knew uh, almost all the monastery in the vicinity of McLeod Gansh, okay, in this place.
Yeah.
I used to go there and see if there are small monks because I was small, so I wanted to be a monk, and if there were a good number of monks in the monastery and so forth. So I actually really wanted to be a monk naturally. I don't know. I think nobody inspired me to be a monk, or nobody told me that you should become a monk. No, nobody.
I
It
get your
just
point.
was kind of an instinct, and so I wouldn't attribute that to this life at all.
Did you
So I actually I feel like from my childhood I felt like I was a monk.
okay?
So
Like you were a
probably
born monk.
probably I was a monk, I feel, and now as a practitioner, sometimes I feel like, yeah. And if I look at my dreams, some of them are quite indicated sometimes. So I feel like I might have been a monk in my past,
I
not just
get your
one,
point.
okay,
I
lives.
get your
I think I would
point.
say several lives.
Did you ever look back at your decision and say or think that maybe I just slightly made a wrong call, or maybe this isn't for me?
And
I'm
never,
just
never,
asking.
never, never,
Never.
never, not even for 1 second.
Like I get your point. Like this is there is so unwavering dedication.
Yeah,
Like
because when I actually got to a monastery and got in this robe, I felt so relieved because when I was in school and wearing the same kind of clothes like ordinary clothes, I mean, lay person's clothes, uh, I didn't feel like I belonged to the community of lay people in the school.
you didn't
Yeah, yeah.
feel okay.
Mm. And when I actually joined a monastery, I felt like a sense of belongingness.
I see.
Yeah, completely like
Like
now.
like you never used to wonder about the worldly things you were missing out. Like just say I
Once,
like
yes, yes, yes.
I'll go very deep in the
Yes.
sense ki, living like playing sports, or maybe let's just say trying to be famous, trying to be rich, or having a wife, having physical relations with your spouse, like what like
Yeah,
worldly
these
affairs.
worldly thoughts, yeah, pops up once in a while. Sometimes they could be
Because
quite
once you
strong
reach
because yeah,
adolescent age,
yes,
these thoughts hit
yeah,
you a
yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yes.
what was your mind at that stage of point?
Well, actually, these are some of them, as I would say, from a Buddhist perspective. I mean, there are various causes, conditions for the arising of our emotions, not just the hormones. Okay,
Yeah.
there are many other factors. So, hormone, of course, plays a strong role in one's own way of behaving towards the opposite gender and so forth. So, there was this hormonal thing there in me, but at the same time, there was this reminder that I took my own decision to be a monk. And then, of course, if you are able to think, as I said before, this short-lived pleasure with the beautiful girl or a woman comes at a price. So it's not free. It comes at a price. Okay,
Definitely.
and it comes with a package of, from a a monk's perspective, package of suffering. And eventually, how good your relation with your own spouse and family, and if you live very happily throughout, okay, 90 years, okay, you live very happily, eventually you're going to die. And what kind of confidence that you have that your rebirth in the future will be a very good one, and what kind of confidence do you have that it's going to be good forever, and that you'll never, in Buddhism we speak of hell,
Yes.
yeah, and preta, hungry ghosts and animals. There's no guarantee that if you're human in this life that you'll be a human in your next life. No. So what kind of past bad karmas lies in store for me? I don't know. So thinking from all these aspects, it's actually really like reminding myself that yeah, I have taken the right decision, so no regret. That's one way of looking at it.
Okay.
Another thing is when we are actually attracted to your beauty, it'll be, you're a layperson, please don't mind because now you're going very deep. So I also
Yeah,
want to go deep.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
When you're attracted to a woman, okay, I'm a monk, so a man. So when you're attracted to the women, okay, first it's physical attraction.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, okay, the voice is beautiful and the body is elegant, okay, and the person is kind, compassionate, okay, everything that is there. That's one to look at. But when I actually get to know the person closer, all right, then physically, if you peel off the very gentle, beautiful skin, there's only blood and pus inside, bone. And if you look internally, uh, I have been to hospitals where they do endoscopy, and nowadays they allow you to watch the
Yeah.
endoscopy on the screen on a television. So I've done that multiple times. So all really blood, bone, pus, nothing interesting inside. It's just the cover looks beautiful, but again you have to wash yourself every every morning. All right. So outwardly beautiful, but and that applies to both men and women. Okay, girls and boys too. So if you look at it, yeah, momentarily, yeah, it's alluring, uh, it's enticing, but no, it's not really enticing if you really dig deeper. And then the experience of the physical intimacy, that's also very brief. But then actually, if you, for example, for the tea, I actually like masala tea. Okay, so just to make the tea, You pay your money, you get it instantly. You think it's that easy? No. Again, again for the money, to earn the money, and you have to go buy the milk, buy the tea, buy the sugar, and you really not. You have to go through a lot, and when you actually drink the tea, maybe it takes 5-10 minutes, but actually to get to that cup of tea, it takes a whole lot of effort. So like that. So if you think in that term, then if you see the suffering aspect of whatever we think is actually pleasurable, then uh, ultimately your mind decides, not your body, whether you want to have a physical relationship. Your mind decides. So if your mind can stop, your body cannot push you. All right. So yes, I have had all those small thoughts, worldly thoughts, and it's common. But then if people are not able to counteract those thoughts, so for example, the concept of mindfulness. So mindfulness entails thinking of your body, mindfulness of mindfulness of body, mindfulness of mind, then phenomena. And so if you think in terms of the mindfulness of the physical aggregate, you have to think it's impermanent, it's suffering in nature. And then there isn't any tangible I that is the owner of this physical body. So and the concept of me, I want to own this. I like that. I don't like that. And then, though physical not so attractive, but as a person, she's very good. So you tend to think of a person independent of the body and the mind. Her mind is very good. She, the possessor, the mind, the object of possession. So make a distinction between these two. So in your mind, you are attracted to an independent I over there, which doesn't exist. If you apply the theory of emptiness, that self, independent self over there doesn't exist. Neither does this independent self here exist. So if you're able to apply these antidotal meditative or contemplative measures, counteracting delusions is not difficult. Yeah.
I see. So, oh, while being a monk for so long, what's the most deepest spiritual, I would say, so realization or any experiences that you have had, which change your perspective on either on life or death, or maybe on your whole life whatsoever? Like any deepest or most impactful spiritual realization or any spiritual awakening or any happening.
Well, awakening, it's difficult because usually we don't share every details. For example, I've
Okay.
done several meditations,
Okay.
tantric meditations. There are so many experiences I've had. But one thing that I'm very sure is when we say Buddha Shakyamuni existed and still exist, or there are various Buddhas, Devas, Devis, and so forth, I don't feel it's a hallucination. I don't think it's just philosophical and something that cannot be validated. I now, in due course of time, through my own practice, through my commitments, we have Bodhisattva vows, self-liberation monastic vows, Bodhisattva vows, Tantric vows, a lot of vows, commitments. So through all these practices, I've been able to validate many of the teachings that I've been practicing, and those teachings have never failed to me. And now the fact that for me, being a Buddhist, taking refuge in Buddhist Shakyamuni and various other Buddhas is not like taking refuge in someone I believe to exist, but I'm not sure about their existence. No, I'm totally sure that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are there. There's I have had so many experiences.
I get the point.
Yeah.
So one more thing. See, the thing is, I personally have a lot of respect for monks, for monkhood, for Buddhism, even for there are a lot of monks, irrespective of the religion, obviously belong to. But I find monkhood as a way of life to be the one of the most toughest. Like as a layperson, to be
Yeah,
honest,
yeah, yeah.
I know deep down you enjoy the heck out of it. I get your
Yeah, yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah, but for an outsider, it's like or like what the heck is these guys doing? Like it's very weird or very like people feel that they will miss out on a lot of things. Like just one life and they are not doing shit about it. So I get your point. See, the thing is, it takes a lot of dedication. It takes a lot of devotion. It takes an insane amount of discipline to be a monk. Like for someone to even think of this, like you have full mindedness, consciousness, devotion, discipline. So leaving the monkhood world as a layperson, how would you want the people, when we, let's just say we face difficulties, or we face for problems in focusing on, distractions, consciousness, mindfulness, spirituality. So you have a mind of a monk. So how can a lay person also have that much amount of, courage, dedication, devotion, principles, like sticking to a one thing, or, let's just say abstaining from all other worldly pleasures which harm a person at the end of the day. For example, drugs, sex, cigarettes, all these things. So I know you are crystal clear about these things. Like, it's a no. How can an ordinary citizen as well, or ordinary person as well, have that same amount of, mindset? Because you guys
Yeah.
have been through a
So
lot.
now I want to be candid about that.
Yeah.
One time when I actually, after become a monk, as a group in a monastery, we are called to do scripture readings in laypersons' homes. So I actually remember one time when I actually went on such a prayer sermon with some other monks. So we were reading sutras, Buddha Shakyamuni's own uh, teachings. And sutra I was reading was Vinaya Sutra. No. Um, yeah, Vinaya Sutra, probably. But Vinaya means discipline, okay? So there are laypersons' discipline as well. So at one point, Buddha Shakyamuni was saying, I've never said this to anyone, layperson, but I'm now actually going to say that to you. He says, when you actually uh, sleep with your partners, okay, you should have this thought that there's no essence in this. I actually read that in a text. I'm not lying about that. And at that thought, at that point, I thought, who is going to think like that? Who's going to think like that? So, if you're able to see life as a suffering, what we have studied, the philosophy, you can study. And if that philosophy is no more a philosophy, but a reality for you, then you'll also align your mind along with that belief. So there's no more an empty belief. If you have studied it thoroughly, contemplated over it thoroughly, then it's a reality for you. So then when you align your life with that reality, while on one side you have your wife, children, responsibility, commitment. On one side, you will not go to extreme. Yeah, of course, this will not prevent you from having intimate relationship with your wife, but you will not confine yourself to giving utmost importance to these small things. All right. And so now your concern or your way of being happy goes beyond physical intimacy, physical pleasures. And so, for example, when you are actually kind to people and when people are really kind to you, and if there is a sense of gratitude to one another, that kind of friendship brings a lot of warmth and kind of mental satisfaction within you. For example, I'm sure you have had, or you still have good friends with you, with whom you hang around a lot. You talk with them, you have parties with them, and sometimes you have nothing to eat. You just take a walk, talk with them, and you're actually mentally happy. So, if you are able to explore another side of happiness beyond the physical thing, beyond the materialistic happiness, that is happiness of mind, for which you need to know how to think properly. Right now, our happiness or joy is actually limited to the joys associated with the five senses. If you hear something uh, wonderful, you are happy. If you see something wonderful, you're happy. If you taste something wonderful, you are happy. Otherwise, you don't know how to enjoy life. Now, if you slowly shut away this habit of relying entirely on your physical senses for happiness, but beyond the five senses, there is what we call as the sixth mind. You remember your parents with love. You remember your school time. So you are not engaging with your senses when you remember your school time memories. When you remember your loved one with affection, you are not using your five senses right now. But there is a sixth mind. So if you're able to apply that, make that mind active and play a more pivotal role in your life, I think you'll be much more happier. So yes,
What about the mindset? Like, for people to, have discipline, have devotion, like
yeah, yeah.
single mindedness devotion, or are we abstaining from the worldly things? Like,
No, you need actually.
what advice would you have? Because you are a living example.
Yeah. But you have to have a lot good time for yourself. Okay. And there is a Tibetan saying, if your mouth is full of do you know tsamba? Tsamba is a kind of a grinded barley, like atta. We eat it. Okay. Raw. Not exactly raw. It's but you know. But while your mouth is full of tsamba, okay, tsamba barley, all right, wheat, okay, and at that time, if you try to play a flute, even if you are very good at it, you won't be able to do a proper justice uh, to playing the flute. Likewise, trying to be like monks in a layperson's family setting with all the devotions to be given to your children, to your wife, to your parents, and so forth, these are actually very difficult. So, to really embody monastic values in life, like the monks, it's very difficult because you're dependent on your family. But despite that, if you make time for yourself, there are times when you can actually secure time for yourself, secure your privacy without the complaints of your family members, and to some extent you can stay. Whatever we study and embody mentally, you can also do the same thing. Like, if you want to be more committed, then take a monastic vow, enter a monastery, or select some kind of a seclusion, and then really seriously dedicate day and night for your practice. But if that is not to be, at least you should, like we do, you should try to, for example, Buddhist tantric practitioners, lay practitioners, accept the monastic vow of celibacy. They have to ideally abide by most of the monastic codes of conducts if they are serious practitioners. They are layperson with family members and so forth. But despite that, there is family support because in Tibetan tradition, Buddhism is really valued so much. So to get family support for your practice, even as a layperson, it's quite easy to such a tantric practitioner. So Milarepa's main teacher was a great translator. He himself had at least one child and a family, and he was working on fields, a peasant, but he still was highly realized. So if you make an effort, yes, it's possible.
So, um, coming, like, my question is related somewhere down the line to this only. Since we're talking about mindset and all these things, what about anger? What
Yeah,
about anger? Do monks get angry,
yeah,
or
yeah, completely.
how do they control it, or how should as we control it?
Well, first I would recommend one text, okay,
Do you
Indian
believe
text.
anger is a good thing or a bad thing? Like somewhere
It's
down the
bad.
line, it's
It's bad,
bad.
yeah.
Like, what kind of anger is justified? What kind of anger is insane? Like,
If you ask me, I don't justify any form of anger.
okay,
Anger is destructive. Most importantly, it destroys your peace of mind. No matter for whatever reason you are angry, for the right reason, for the wrong reason, uh, once you are angry, you are not really happy. As long so,
give me your 2 cents on this. What should I do? What should other people do to curtail anger, to keep it in check, to to eliminate anger from our
okay.
emotions?
Now I'm going to quote one of the Indian masters, Shandideva.
Yeah,
I think he was 7th or 8th century Indian master, Nalanda. So Shandideva says in his text Bodhisattvacharya, engaging in the deeds of Bodhisattva. It's translated. It's not a good translation, but one British translator has translated this text, and that's quite widely used. So the ways of Bodhisattvas. And that's the name of the text. Actually, I have done the translation of that text. I
okay.
have not published it yet. I'll publish it at the end of this year, probably. So anyhow, he says the sixth chapter, basically the sixth chapter of Shandideva speaks a lot about anger. So he says anger actually, on one side, destroys your own karma,
It destroys our own karma.
past karma, good karmas. Okay.
Okay, good
Yeah,
karmas.
yeah,
It
yeah,
destroys good
yeah,
karmas.
good
Okay.
karma. And then if you are angry at others, it does not really inflict harm on other physically. If you're angry with someone who doesn't know that you are angry with him or her, that person is not altered at all. You have not done any damage to the person, but you have done damage to your peace of mind. All right. So your peace of mind is destroyed by anger. And you don't want that. You don't want your past karmas, okay, accumulate over hundreds of
Time.
years
Yes.
to be eliminated in a second. You don't want that. And so if a damage has been done, that is done, finished. If you mentally dwell on that, it's not going to undo the damage. All right. So another thing is, there are many reasons why we are angry with one another, but you have to look at the reason. If somebody has spilled tea and you're angry with that, so you have to look at the damage done, and if the damage is such that it can be, if you can undo the damage, if you can rectify the damage, okay, if you can somehow destruction that was caused, if you can still replace it, and so it's something that can be remedied. So you have to look at whatever has happened and whatever the situation is and see if it can be remedied or not. So he says, if it can be remedied, then do whatever necessary to undo the damage. Practical, right? If if it cannot be remedied, now you want happiness. You don't want suffer. Probably that's the reason why you're angry. For that the person has caused unhappiness on you, hurt you. So now, if it cannot be remedied, what do you benefit by getting angry at the situation or people? And then again, Midu Sushit, you want to present yourself beautifully to others. No matter whoever that person is. If the person is actually a very smart looking, very intelligent looking, very beautiful or handsome looking person, even if that is the case, if that person gets angry, nobody looks presentable when they are actually really angry. And you want to present yourself beautiful to others, right? And so the situation, the damage is done. You cannot remedy that. So there is no point in worrying about that. If it's something that can be remedied, do what is needful, right? So anger, if you see that it has no virtue, and then you will come to your sense that there is no point in quarreling or debating or arguing about small things. So extending your scope of horizon of your outlook, that's very important. Use common sense. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying Buddha Shakyamuni said this and that. Even when I quoted Chandideva, I'm quoting his text and giving reason, his reason. Then Chandrakirti, another Indian master, great master from Nalanda, he said, if by retaliating in response to a harm inflicted upon you, by retaliating in response to a harm done on you, you can tell, whatever damage that was done, can it undo the damage? No. So by retaliating, the damage done cannot be undone. Okay. So to undo the damage, there's no benefiting by retaliating. Okay. So in the future, do you want to be happy or do you want to suffer? And says, I don't want to suffer. I want to be happy. So if you want to be happy, then why you are accumulating a negative karma now that will bring suffering in the future? So the concept of karma is there. But again, if you don't believe in future life, okay, and if your concern is only this life, all right, then the scope of your concern is very limited. And basically, you're constrained. Your thought is not wide at all. And so because of that, these may not apply. But for someone who believes in reincarnation, for someone who believes in karma, these are totally sensible things to think of. The damage done. For example, we lost our country, okay? So ideally, everyone would justify that Chinese occupation of Tibet will make us angry, and this anger so justifiable.
Yes, it is very justifiable.
Yeah. So everyone will say that. But if I get angry at the Chinese, would my anger harm them? No. And even if my anger harms them, okay, what is there for me? There is nothing in me. I want to be happy. That's not going to increase my happiness. Even if it brings me a little satisfaction, it's only for few seconds, few moments. Very flimsy. So the Chinese have occupied our country and killed 1.2 million Tibetans. Basically, 1.2 million Tibetans have died as a direct result of Chinese occupation, either through their own killing or because of starvation or detention So the damage they have done, if we retaliate, is not going to undo the damage. People who were killed. 6,000 monasteries were destroyed. Not just by being angry at the Chinese, these 6,000 monasteries will not revive by themselves. So no benefit in undoing the damage. Now in the future, I want to be happy. If I want to be happy, I don't think angering Chinese or inflicting harm on China is a good thing. As a nation, as an individual, it's not good for me as an individual, for Tibetans as a nation. It's not going to be in our favor. All right. So by retaliating, there is no benefit really. If I want to be happy in the future, what happened to us is actually a result of our own bad karma in the past. So I accept that in a way. But then doesn't mean that you remain very gullible and let them do whatever they want. No. Practically, if the way in which you respond is entails using some violence, because some people don't listen to common sense at all, the extremists. All right. But anger is about your motivation. There should be no like a hurtful thought. But sometimes to discipline people, even if it's out of compassion, you have to use violence. So violence, I don't think whether it's by itself negative, whether it's negative or not, is determined by the motivation preceding and accompanying the action. If the motivation is good, preceding as well as associating motivation is good. Even if the act looks violent, I don't think it's in a real sense a negative karma. And also, I won't consider that as a violent action. All right. So by directing your anger against others, there is no benefit. But practically, even if you have to use violence in order to solve the issue, and if there is no alternative, if there are extremists, for example, we all know the news and what happened in Kashmir, Pahalgam. It's terrible for them to pick up people, random people, tourists who have done no harm to them, and ask them what your religion is, and then kill them on the spot. Horrible. The real blame lies in their extremist thought. So now, as a nation, if you don't do anything, these people will get carried away. But we have to resist them. But if there's a way we can talk with one another, so that they understand that they want to be happy, we want to be happy, and so through some kind of mutual concern, mutual respect, and truthfully, if you can talk with them, that's the best. But if there is no other option,
There is no other option as of today.
then you have to resort to violence, because the well-being of millions of Indians, including us, actually. Dharamsala was, in 1907, during the Bangladesh war, people told me, I wasn't there, I wasn't born, I think. People told me they had to cover the roofs of the houses with leaves and trees. Yeah. And in 1965, a bomb fell here in Dharamsala. So we were scared too. I was also a little scared there. Maybe I might die, you never know.
Absolutely.
So therefore, protecting our whole nation, and whatever you must do, you have to do. But anger will not harm them, it will harm you. So with a sense of concern, and for foolish people, the only voice, the manner in which you can tame them or curb their infiltration, if it's a violent act, then do that with a sense of concern for other, empathy for other. But momentarily, for example, when you put an injection on a small child with concern, you know it's going to pain, but it's actually to avoid greater damage to the child. So with a concern for their life, not out of bitterness, do whatever means is necessary, but with no hatred. Hatred is not useful for anyone.
So right now, see, the thing is, we are going on a different trajectory because you have that's a different topic. So it has opened up a lot of questions in my own mind. Like I want to ask some. So right now, India, Pakistan. Like since we're talking about the Pahalgam attack, I wanted this to be a separate conversation, but we will do this in this thing only. There is a lot of hatred, but the thing is, people living in Pakistan, they are radicalized, they are extremist, they are actually taught that Hindus are kafirs, or India Gazwa Hind. Like this is a common uh, text, like this is like a basic mission of Pakistanis, that they want to conquer Hindus and India. So when that kind of hatred exists between, like, that kind of hatred they have in their own mind. How do you think we as Indians should respond? Because as of today, talks are not doing anything. For centuries, like for 80 years, talks have done absolutely nothing, and we have had 4 wars. And now this was almost going to be a war. It has been tragically been a ceasefire. I was not in favor of it.
Okay, I understood.
Yeah.
As I said,
So how as Indians, or like for the Indian government, or even for the armed forces, do you think that Operation Sindoor, or maybe that that we launched a counter attack, was it justifiable? Like, what's your opinion on this?
it's as a monk, I cannot condone violence.
Yeah.
Okay, basically, yeah, particularly killing of people.
Yeah.
But as a nation, you have to think bigger. Okay,
Absolutely.
the India as a nation uh, has more than 1 billion people.
Yes.
Yeah, and the safety of 1 billion and deterrent is very important.
Deterrent is very important.
So now, as far as indoctrination is concerned, in the beginning we spoke about misconception, self-grasping as a misconception. So one Indian master, Chandrakirti, said, first we grasp onto an independent I, okay? Then we grasp onto an independent mind, okay? So first I think of myself as an independent person. Then me, mine, we Tibetans, we and there. There is a strong sense of demarcation based on that concreteness attributable to self. Based on that, there is a sense of concrete self. And then that sense of concrete sense of I will be expanded to mine. And likewise, there, concrete them, they and them. So there is a division based on grasping at concrete self and concrete others. And then whatever is them, you somehow sideline them, or you have a sense of aversion to them, sense of attachment to I and mine. And then that will trigger that such a thought will trigger action. And when you have aversion, what do? You try to destroy others. When you have attachment, you try to protect. So that's exactly happening at a national level, individual level. So when we speak of nation, it consists of individuals. Societal level, it consists of individuals. So now education is very important. Education, particularly in Pakistan, I have seen many highly educated people too. Yeah. And not everyone is speaking badly about the Sindoor attack. Yeah. And some elderlies are saying, well, India, we were actually, our nation came into existence because first we were one, and then we got split into two. So basically, siblings in a way, basically. And another Pakistani was saying that India has extended its friendship continuously. But despite that, we have been causing damages. And so there is a limit to the tolerance. And he said, if you extend hand of friendship to Indians, it's much, much in our favor than making India our enemy. And that is actually a Pakistani saying. I have seen that on Facebook. One actually, if you look at my post, I've shared that on my post too. So some people like that are there in Pakistan. Now, indoctrination, if this is happening because of talks here and there, again, proper doctrination, I mean proper education, is very needed. So common sense
not
is
really happening in Pakistan.
no, I know.
That's all
But
that.
basically, yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you think commonsensically, okay, they are dependent on Indian water, and life without water, you cannot live. Wow. And then also there is a lot of some kind of business interaction between Pakistan and India, and your neighbors. Environmentally, also somehow you influence one another. So if you think in terms of independence, I'm not saying Indians, okay, the Pakistanis, if they think in terms of interdependence, then when you kill someone, you do not benefit anyone. All right. So instead of fighting, if you really extend our friendship hand, Indians actually they really have a big heart. I have lived in India whole of my life, and Indians actually have very good values. Hindus, if you ask me, I'm a Buddhist right now, but if I were not to be a Buddhist, then I have No difficulty in saying that. I would be happier to have another religion. And if I have to choose another religion apart from Buddhism, I would definitely choose Hinduism. Reason? Because there is a strong belief in reincarnation. There is a strong belief in karma. There is a strong belief in the value system, ethics. And at, uh, if you look at the value systems around the world, India is the richest. If you look in terms of history, India is the richest. Buddhism that we are so proud of, it's not Tibet's homegrown religion. We brought it from India. We are actually right now the custodians of Buddhist tradition, but the real honor, that's India. So if you look at India positively, there is more to gain by befriending India than by making India an enemy, because India actually, now it's actually a superpower.
Yes,
And
sir.
look what happened, and they got defeated. Whole world knows it. So there is no point in fighting.
Yes, sir. So last question. So, what do you think about? See, we have talked about anger. We have talked about dedication, devotion, discipline, a whole lot of things. So, what do you think about mindfulness? Over the ages, like as in modern times, mindfulness is increasingly becoming a Western concept, like of the Western world. So, sir, do you think that the Western civilization as of today is trying to somewhere down the line hamper or get in the way of ancient Buddhist philosophies and rituals, or spiritualism? Like, do you believe somewhere down the line, what is it? First, describe the word mindfulness in your own words. Then you do a comparison of how Western civilization is reaching about with mindfulness. And do you think they are somewhere down the line interfering with the way Buddhist people or Buddhist rituals think of mindfulness?
Basically,
Like,
the
are they?
Sanskrit term is satip, okay? So if you want to know my, say, truthful opinion, again, I'm not being biased, that's true.
Absolutely.
The rest of the world did not know about meditation until it got introduced in Indian civilization. There was no concept of meditation elsewhere. If you look at Judeo-Christian traditions, okay, later on they picked up meditation, but it didn't exist. But meditation existed in Hinduism, meditation existed in Jainism, Buddhism. And so homegrown Indian religions, they have the concept of meditation. So meditation entails, observing your mind, all right? Observing. So
Go with the flow, no
yeah,
issues
yeah.
about it.
So meditation entails observing your mind, and and if you are able to do that properly, then that will lead slowly to single pointedness. If you are able, focus on one object for 1 second, extend it to 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and then you immerse in the object for a while, and you may never notice you are thinking of that for maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and when you are in that state, there are two things that needs to be kept in mind. One is the focus. We should not lose sight of the focus, whatever you're thinking. Second thing is there has the mind watching the object should be very intelligent, smart, fresh. If you observe one object consistently and there is focus there, but the intelligent aspects of intelligence or freshness or smartness of the mind, if that's not there, then it's going to make your mind unintelligent. You'll have forgetfulness and you'll become a slow thinker. You will not be quick. So in meditation, while we work on maintaining the focus, we also work on maintaining the freshness of the mind. When these two are combined, and if you're able to perfect them, retain focus consistently on one object, all right, you should not use your senses. Think of your mother or a friend right now. I'm just thinking of His Holiness, the Dalai
Yes,
Lama.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
his face comes to me. So whatever appears to my senses, okay, you, this mic, everything, I just neglect. So that's how you have to train. Focus, like it's kind of a memory training. So if you're able to do that properly, then it gives you a lot of energy. And then there's attention there. And if you study, you can study very well. Whatever you do, you can do that with attention. Whereas what happens is we are distracted at various levels, partly because of social media, then technology, and materialism and so many commitments and busy lifestyles. So because of that, maintaining mindfulness in daily lifetime is actually very difficult. So what you need to do is you really need to make time for yourselves. If you're able to make time for yourself slowly, then the first thing is start with watching your breath. All right, breathe out, breathe in, and then mentally count. And if you can do that 10 times, that is actually the object here is your breath, which is gross. So then, if you're able to do that properly, then if you focus on something not physically visible right now, but just even if it's a physical thing, don't use your physical senses to focus on that, but just mentally focus on that. And so that's how you train in mindfulness. And practice of mindfulness actually is similar to the practice of meditation. Now, on what do you meditate? As Buddhists, we meditate on Buddhist deities, Buddhas, or even you can think of meditate on compassion, meditate on suffering, so many objects of meditation. So, whatever your object of meditation doesn't matter. Two elements to that: focus and alertness of the mind. If you are able to work on them and prolong them, that is mindfulness. Okay?
And sir, what about, since part two of this question, there is a lot of Western civilizational concept of, secular mindfulness, or let's just say they are not really deep into, rituals and
Yeah, yeah.
rituals and these religious things.
Yeah, yeah.
So do you think that this is maybe let's just say seclusion of mindfulness, or maybe it's an evolution of a new dharma? Like, what do you think?
Well, actually,
Are they adding something good to it, or is it
yeah,
or
I
is it
understand.
going
Yeah,
way
yeah.
down the line?
Secular in the context of Indian constitution means not showing any favoritism to any religion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it means. Okay, not being against religion.
Yes.
But now, secular in the context, without denying in the context of secular mindfulness, as far as I understand it is, it means not aligning to any religious philosophy or belief, but again, simply working on your mind in order to maintain peace of mind.
Do you think it's possible, like,
Yeah, it's
without aligning yourself
well, how
into
far
any
you can do
religion?
with secular mindfulness, that's another topic. But this is okay because in Buddhism or in other Hinduism or Jainism, uh, when we use mindfulness, we have a set purpose: attainment of moksha,
Yes.
divinity, or whatever. For that, we apply this concept or the application of mindfulness. Now, their set purpose is simply happiness of mind. That's all, and they are not interested in any religion. Okay, and actually, some may not even like religion. Okay, but despite that, they are humans, and they want to be happy, and they have every right to be happy. Also, because of that, applying some topics, common principles from religion in their day-to-day life without adhering to that religious principle, I think that's okay. Now we should not become possessive of our culture to such an extent that our outreach to others is limited. When actually people appreciate the principles that come from religions, then slowly, if they want more, you cannot, without deceiving people by, sincerely, if you show them some practices within religion that they can practice without aligning to any religious philosophy, then if they actually experience the benefit themselves, then they'll come questioning about religions. Then they explore more. And if they are intelligent, they can also be lead to a religion. Now, ideally, a religious practitioner should not think of his religious teachings and influence on others in order to enslave others to your servitude or in order to impose your authority over them. And that is not a proper motivation. If your motivation is simply the other person, from Buddhist particularly, is as important as you are. That's your mother multiple times in your life, in your past lives, and also in the future. And someone who if you benefit unconditionally, you ripe the karmic benefit. And if someone trusts you entirely, and if you are practicing compassion genuinely, you don't want to impose your authority over them. That's actually abusive thought. So, a religious practitioner should not think of imposing one's own superiority over other, or one's own dominance on others, but simply just like we love our pets, with a caring sense of well-being further. If you introduce your religious practices to others, even animals, tigers, lions, they understand when you show genuine affection. So humans, I think they will understand.
Get your point,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
So any one liner for the audience, like if all of our knowledge, if all of our books you read, everything is taken away, if your whole memory is erased, like what's the one thought or that one code or that one line which will stick in your mind forever?
If all of my memories are taken away, I think you're thinking of a scenario that is impossible. Anyway, actually, one thing that, because I think now the audience probably will be Indians and Tibetans. And the Tibetans, usually every Sunday I teach to some limited Tibetans, and it's put on YouTube, so they understand my thoughts. So Indian friends, I want to tell you, and when I was in school, we always look up to, we always try to copy the West. Okay, the way we dress, the way we speak, the way we think. We always, for example, if it's a well-off family, they always try to speak in English. So we have looked up to the West, and in some cases, yes, it's worthwhile looking up to the West. But now it's time to reflect on your cultural heritage as Indians, because I think, as a Buddhist philosopher, as a Buddhist practitioner, I think India is really rich culturally. The reason why I'm saying is because you have a lot of respect for your elders. The West does not have that kind of respect for the elders. You have a lot of respect for people who have values, and the West do not have that kind of values that you have. You have a lot of affection within the family. You have sense of gratitude to your parents, to your friends, and so forth. Oh, I don't think the modern world elsewhere is as rich as India. India and other societies influenced by Indian culture have. So we do not really need to dress like Westerners. Indian dresses are really fine. We don't really need to always speak in English to show that we. I mean, my Hindi is quite weak, so I don't want to.
I get your point. I get your point.
Otherwise, I would really love to speak in Shubd Hindi, but my Hindi is not that good, so
I see.
I would not rather embarrass myself. But the message is clear that India is culturally very rich, and you should, as His Holiness always says, you should lead the world in terms of value. I have lived my whole life in India. I've been to America several times and other countries, and I never wanted to live elsewhere. Tibet is another thing, okay?
I get your
But
point.
India, because here I am very comfortable, and I can relate to Indians very easily, and it's a very loving environment. Okay, generally, of course, India has more than 1 billion humans, so small problems here and there inevitable, unavoidable. But despite that, India is really very rich country, morally very rich country, culturally very rich, and Indians are also very intelligent. Basically, most of the immigrant scientists in America are
Yeah.
Indians.
Yes.
So I think it's time to congratulate yourselves as Indian and lead the world in terms of value system, in terms of cultural heritage. That's my message, and I'm not saying I'm not playing any politics by saying that to the Indians.
I get your point.
But
I get your
I
point.
really mean it sincerely.
I get your
I'm
point.
grateful that we inherited Buddhism from India, and if Buddhism is not there, I don't feel like I want to live my life properly. I cannot live my life properly, happily without Buddhism. It came from India, and culturally, I would say Buddhist values, even if they are not Buddhist, are still intact in many of the Indian ways of life. So be proud of being Indians, and lead the world. That's my
Thank-
message to the Indians.
Thanks so much, sir.
Yeah.
Genuinely, it was a very heavy conversation, very deep, insightful, I would say so. One of the most deepest conversations I've ever had.
Thank you.
Despite the crane, trying to ruin this
Whenever we are
podcast.
trying to do something good, there always be some form of obstacles.
Yeah,
As a religious practitioner, I'm so aware of that. So
really.
that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe Pakistan should throw a missile over there as well.
No. Again, we should remember. Yeah. There is a Tibetan philosopher who says, if you by taking grains, a handful of grains, and then picking up one grain, and then do not say all grains are like this, because you have different sides of grains, different kinds of grains, so different kinds of Pakistani individuals, and those unfortunately are driven by extremists. I feel so sorry for them. So sorry for them.
Absolutely, I get your
Yeah,
point.
so sorry for them, and neither they are happy nor are they trying to help others to be happy. And the pursuit of life, simply take apart religion, is to be happy. And you are not really happy if you carry a gun and sort of to kill others. No.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. Yes, thanks so much, sir. Again,
Most welcome.
deeply humble, sir.
Yeah.
Incredibly humble, sir. Thank you so much for the
Most
conversation.
welcome. Yeah.
Thank you.